So, yes, I'm going to be talking about extending Marketing Cloud account engagement. I kind of have to call it that, but to start off with. But for now, I'm going to call it Pardot because I don't like the name Marketing Cloud account engagement. Everyone thinks it's Marketing Cloud, and it isn't. It's a separate product, and we'll look at that. So, this is me. If that's my face, in case you don't recognize it, and some shameless promotion. So I'm going to be speaking at Czech Dreaming. I'm going to be talking with my partner in crime, Sylvia, and we're going to be talking about being kind to your future admin self. That's a fun session. And someone may have mentioned what's it called? London's Calling. Yeah, I'm going to be there. And I'm also going to be talking about Pardot at London's Calling. So that will be a different session to this. So if this wets your whistle, then you can come along to that. I'm going to be talking about what Salesforce and Pardot admins need to know about each other's systems. And then the final bit of shameless promotion is Study Buddy. So there's a QR code there. There's a tiny link. And if this is the first time you're hearing about Study Buddies, I'm not. This is your chance to say, this is what I'm studying. This is the kind of thing that I would like to know about, and or I will find for you somebody else who's studying the same thing. So a Study Buddy, and with your Study Buddy, you can encourage each other, you can give each other tips about what you're doing, hold each other responsible. It's going to be your process to help each other achieve whatever your study goal is, right? So whether you are studying, your Salesforce Associate cert, I don't know, maybe, or whether you are going for the kind of end game sort of architecture kind of things, CTA, yeah, end game architecture exams, let me know. I'll find someone who is doing a similar thing. So far, I've put together 52 people. Yes, and I'm hoping to put together some more. Thank you very much. So, now, small confession here. I lifted this from Tech Radar. What does Salesforce Pardot do? And I was looking at these bullet points earlier today, and I thought that's really boring. And it's not a great explanation for techies. It's very marketing-y speak. So let's move on from there. This is more like it for me. So what we do with Pardot, right, is you start off, you add prospect data. Doesn't matter how it gets added, we just add it in. It goes into Pardot, and they do something called segmentation. That's basically taking data about your prospects and splitting them off into different lists, right? You send off emails, and I started sending off all the different ways that Pardot sends emails, and I got bored, and I just put etc. on the end. There's lots of different ways Pardot sends emails. You then measure the engagement. You measure what people have clicked on, what things that people have opened, and that loops back round to further segment, right? So when I'm training people to use Pardot, the example I tend to use is if I've got an email from a travel company that says, find out about romantic holidays, find out about cheap holidays, city breaks, cultural adventures. If I click on, romantic holidays, it's going to put me on the list. It's going to say Nathaniel Sombu, romantic. If I click on cheap holidays, it's going to say Nathaniel Sombu, cheap. Yeah, but that's sort of the point of those emails. That's the point of those lists. At some point, and it may be immediately, it may be like after I've shown my interest, my intention to buy, or maybe it's because they are profiling me by asking me for some more information as we go along. It gets MQL, Marketing Qualified Lead. That comes into Salesforce as a lead, and then you start again, right? As a sales qualified lead. And you then add more data in from Salesforce that syncs back into Pardot, and guess what? That helps you further segment. You send out some more nurturing emails about the things that people have shown an interest in. That yes. But then when the salesman says, "How romantic are you? How cheap are you?" That segments me further down. Hello. If you're going to ask me how cheap I am, I'm not going to ask.
Where are you expressing that you're cheap? Is it to an email, you're clicking on something in an email?
Yes.
Or is it on some other, like either from data from a website or data from somewhere else? Can Pardot or can a system pick up
Okay.
from somewhere else?
Okay. So data in Pardot essentially comes in data that you've added in at the beginning that Pardot has added, either at the initial contact or from a further form, right? So Pardot has this idea of progressive profiling, where they're going to ask you questions when you, like, say, click here to get our brochure. It's going to say, well, I'm going to just put a form in front of that, and I'm going to ask you things that I don't know about you already. Yeah. So if it doesn't have things, it's going to ask me for more things. So that's something that happens in Pardot. The other thing that happens is that you can put the tracking on your website. So Pardot cookies on your website, and that also, there's a whole thing about cookieing and stuff like that, but that can also identify you as saying you spent time on this on the website, therefore I'm going to categorize you. And yes, you have completion action. So you click on something and it says, oh, you clicked on that link. That takes you back, and you have data that comes from Salesforce. So you have fields and whatnot that we discover in Salesforce, and that comes back in. So yeah, all of that, right, comes in to say we're going to segment you. And I'm kind of laboring this point because segmentation is really the bread and butter, the heart and soul of marketing. So just to round this off, it used to be that marketing was about spraying and praying, right? You just send everything to everyone, yeah? Now it's about saying we want to understand our customers better, and we want to serve content that is about the problem that they want to solve. And you need to understand who your customer is before you start saying, I'm going to serve up content which is appropriate, right? So that's, you can go back to the Salesforce blog and TechRadar blog about stuff, but this to me is a bit more interesting. Okay, so having said that, there is this great thing called a Pardot sync, and it's amazing, but it does have some limitations, right? So these are all the objects that you can sync to, right, from Pardot to Salesforce, right? You've got Pardot has prospects, and that maps to leads and contacts. So is this already a lead? Is it a contact? And that you can create leads, but not contacts. You can read leads and contacts. You can update them. Marvelous. You can read accounts. Yeah, so you read in account data about your prospects. You can't update them. Same with opportunities. Yeah? You can't update them. Your automations can read in campaign members and automate. So I have tended to do this a lot where you say to salespeople, put someone into a campaign, and then that's read in by Pardot, and then that's anyone who's in campaign X is in list X, and we send stuff off to them automatically, right? And you can also create campaign members from Pardot. You can also, with those automations, create tasks, but you can't read them, which is fun. And sorry?
You can't read the task.
You can't. Pardot can't read tasks. It can create tasks, but it can't read them. And finally, Pardot can read custom objects, but it's not standard, right? Although anything other than the ones prospects, accounts, opportunities, campaign members, and tasks are not standard, and they will have an additional cost, right? And if you pay the extra money for a custom object, you can't write to it, right? It's read-only. So that's sort of part of what we're going to address now. There are, I kind of said automations, globally. There are 4 types of automation, right? There's Engagement Studio, which is a bit like Process Builder, kind of. It's got a flow type feel to it. Completion actions, so which is when something happens, when a prospect engages with content, like opening an email, clicking on a link, completing a form, visiting a landing page, blah, 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 right? You then say, okay, go off and do something, right? We have something which Pardot really unimaginatively called a automation, which basically says when some automation is met by a prospect, go off and do something, and we have dynamic lists. So they're kind of a dynamic list is where when a prospect meets some criteria, add them to a list. Yeah. So that's sort of what automation is available in Pardot. So I'm going to show you 3 demos, right? So apologies for how dull my slides are, but I'm going to show you 3 demos, and the first one we're going to create through something which is called a marketing extension, a case. Now, I'm kind of doing cases because why not? But it could be anything. It could be anything. I just thought that cases would be good. So our recipe here is that we need to create some fields in Pardot. There'll be a Pardot form, which is part of the standard kind of toolbox of a marketer, creating a form. We're going to, over on the Salesforce side, have a flow. There'll be a marketing extension, which is the new thing, which we're kind of is the point of what we're going to do today. That's going to have an action type. And then in Pardot, there'll be an engagement program, and then hopefully we'll see the result at the end. Okay, so we have, I think if I'm still logged in, so if I click here, I can look at my fields. Okay, so you'll see that I have a bunch of default fields, and I've got some prospect fields here which are custom, right? So I've got a case type, case reason, blah, 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 right? These are, so normally when you create a field in Pardot, most of the time you would say, you would map it to a field in Pardot. So all of your account and prospect and et cetera fields are mapped to you have a field in Pardot which is mapped to the equivalent object in Salesforce. But we don't have case fields in in Pardot, we know it's not one of our objects, so these are just not in not in Pardot, right? Pardot doesn't know about cases. Our next thing is we have a new Pardot form. Okay, so this is our Pardot form. Yeah, where our marketer, so don't worry too much about this, our marketer will be creating all this, and then they'll be chucking on a form that will look a bit like this, right? But probably jazzed up with like a logo and etc. Yeah? So you add in your details on there. Now, forms kind of come in two flavors, right? They come in like I have a form and I give that over to my web person and say, stick that in an iframe for me, which they always hate, right? Or you say, here's a handler, right? Create a form. I want you to give these specific details, right? These are the field names I need, and then here's a link, and it magics itself into Pardot. Right, and it's just posts in, which is fine, and that means that your web developer can just do what they do, and it pushes itself in. It's up to you, it's up to your marketer how they do that. But the thing is that you have a form which pushes into Pardot. Now, natively, right, that creates something in Pardot, and the only thing that Pardot can do is either update a contact, or if there's no contact and there's no lead, create a new lead. Yeah? And it does that when you assign it to a Salesforce user. Yeah? Or send it through an assignment rule. So, which is what I tend to do. I just say, just give it to Salesforce and use whatever assignment rules are there. But you don't have to do that. The marketer doesn't have to do that. They can do something else. So we're going to leave Pardot behind now, and I'm going to create a flow. Okay, now are we ready for my beautiful, beautiful flow? That's it. That's my flow. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So the point is that the flow can be very, 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 very simple. And hang on. Where's my... I put my glasses on so I can see the icon. Mumble, talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to take it off auto layout, put it on free forms so I can see. Okay, so the flows can be as complicated or as easy as you like. The point here is I have variables. Yeah, that's where the magic happens, and the variables, are available for input. Yes? All right, yeah. I can see you kind of going, Nathaniel, yeah. We know how this stuff works. So once you have your flow, you can go on to the next bit. Now, the next bit, I will tell you now that according to the documentation for marketing extensions, which is new in the last release, it says you will need a developer for this. I decided to test that, and well, as you can see, you either need a developer or a switched-on admin, right, that knows how to create a flow. So for this case, a flow is good enough. The point is that what I'm going to show you now is how they get hooked up. So what you do is you create a marketing app extension. So you go to setup, and you find account engagement, and marketing app extensions, and I'm going to show you two today. I've got, that's my marketing app extension, which I've called my demo extension because I have no imagination. Okay, so you give it a name, you say it's active in automation, and You don't be naughty, like I've been naughty, and you give it an actual description. You then say, okay, what actions are available in my extension? So I've created an action called create case. Yeah? And this is my action. Yeah? You give it a name. Yeah? So all I've done is I've given it a name and a description. And I've told it what invocable action I want to use. Yeah? So if I edit this, I can't find the edit button. Oh yeah, there it is. If I edit this, yeah. Here, this is where I look up the invocable action. Now, your invocable action can be a flow, yeah, that has input variables, or it can be invocable apex. So my next two demos, invocable apex, yeah. What it will then do, helpfully or not, is it will say, I will give you the JSON for that thing, right? And what and you can kind of say, actually, I've got all this stuff, but I don't want to pass maybe contact ID to Marketing Cloud, to Pardot in this case. So you can just rip that bit out if you want to. Yeah. I found that this is good for ripping pieces out, not good for putting stuff in. Because, if you put something in, it's not going to be in your Apex anyway, right? So create the Apex, it will give you the schema, and then you can rip stuff out the schema if you want to. Yeah? So that is the glue that sits between your invocable, whether that's a flow or Apex, and your Pardot. Next part of the recipe is back over to my marketer. Yeah, Russell. So let's go back to Calcagent. I did, and this one is create case. Okay. So what the marketer will do is they will start in Engagement Studio and they'll say, okay, anyone who is on a list. So remember, there's different ways of people getting onto lists. Yeah, anyone who's on a list, they go through a program, and here I've left this very, very simple, and they go to create a case. Yeah, so if I just pause this, and so that I can go back to build it, what you need to tell your marketer to do is to go to an element, say I'm going to have an action, and in that action I'm going to have an external action, or create case, and there are my variables. Yeah? And what they will do is they'll put in the HTML for the merge fields, right? And if they have been building emails, they should know what these things are. Frankly, what I tend to do is I just go to the email builder and say, okay, yeah, type in the name of the field, and then it will tell me what the things are. But you can see, it's because these are all on the same object, on the prospect object, is recipient dot, and then the name of the field, right? So case underscore description, recipient dot email, etc. And I'm going to put those into here, And then when this Engagement Studio fires, that's when it's going to, it will call the marketing extension. The marketing extension calls my invocable, and then that does whatever it does. Yeah? And that's it. Yeah? I'm not going to go through too much about how to build engagement studios, because that's not your job. That's the marketer's job. Your job is to make sure that they can get to this point. But there are some caveats. Well, there's one big caveat, right? Apart from having to create an invocable. This will fire on sync, right? Which is a clock. It goes round every 3 minutes and does what it needs to do. So these are really not real time. Yeah, it'll happen every 3 minutes. Second thing is that if this fires and it takes more than I believe the latest thing in the documentation is 5 seconds to go, it would just go, now I'm gonna give up, right? So now I was speaking to my friend, Alan, you're gonna tell me what idiot's gonna do something more than 5 seconds?
I'm wondering,
Yes.
can it broadcast a platform event? And the platform event, which we all know now,
No. This is what, yeah, I know what you mean. If you were to hook up Pardot through something else, right, then sure. But no, these are about marketing extensions. If your code, and this is where you should probably be asynchronous if you are doing something which is heavy, yeah. If your code takes longer than 5 seconds to come back and say I am done, then you should consider saying, call it, get it to just go, I'm going to do something asynchronously, like a platform event or whatever, and then come back and say I'm done straight away. It doesn't have to do the thing. It just needs to say yeah, thank you, I'm done. Yeah, so yes, if you have your Apex, do what it needs to do. This is a fire and forget, right? Yeah. The Pardot just needs to say, has that been done? It doesn't need to know what it has been done. Yeah. Any questions about creating a case, or have I blown your mind with how complex my flow is? Yeah.
If the code is reaching very high,
Yep.
so that 3 minutes sync is lost, doesn't have to wait another 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So that keeps adding 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If the code is not handling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's not great. Yeah. So I'm just going to put it out there, right? Yes, I spoke to my friend and I was like, this 5 minute thing, and he said to me, and he's been a developer Salesforce developer for 15 years, I think, and he said to me, what idiot has their code running for more than 5 seconds anyway? I was like, well, it includes the caller. I was like, yeah, anyway. So yes, he's a better, he codes, I tinker. Anyway, right, okay, so what does the result look like? Well, this is something that I put in through the thing. Now, the reason why I'm not doing this live is the sync takes 3 minutes, and I didn't want to stand here for 3 minutes chatting about it, waiting for it to come through. Okay, so the form's been filled out, and it's created a case for me. That's all marvelous, yeah? And it's been created because my integration user is my B2B marketing integration user, right? Because that's the user that is there. Cool. Okay, so that is my first use case of getting Pardot to create something other than the objects that it can create natively. Yeah? pushing stuff into Salesforce. My second use case is from is actually from the App Exchange, right? But I will go through it anyway. So first thing I'm going to do is install the email validator app, and even after you've installed the email validator app, I then need to go through to the marketing extension. This is actually a really good use case, right? Because what we're going to do here is what their code does is it goes to an external service, right? Something that my flow kind of can't do very well, right? It goes off to an external service. So I've put in emailrep.io as my external service, and then when I put in an email address, emailrep.io will do a check and come back and say whether this is a reputable email or whether it's spam. Yeah, and then I can go back. I can have an engagement program, and that engagement program, I can do stuff, and then I can say there's a naughty list, yes, of bad emails, and then I'm going to show you how it appears on the prospect. So, email validator app. So I'm just going to take you through the quip. Yeah, and I'm not going to go through it, but if you want to look at this, that's great. But this is the installation guide. This is actually a pretty good sort of guide to what's going on here. So my Pardot business unit is going through an action trigger. It's getting it's going to that marketing app extension. It's going to say there's an invocable action. That invocable action goes out to a third-party app. It comes back to a prospect activity, and it's going to look at an activity type, yeah, which is the second thing we're going to look at, which comes back into Pardot. Yeah, so it's a big round circle. And then there's just pages and pages and pages of stuff that I need to do, right? And the important thing here is that to pop stuff out, yeah, it's fine. Don't need anything, right? Salesforce connected with Pardot, it's great. To pop stuff back into Pardot, I got to do all the gubbins with name credentials and connected apps, and OAuth authorization, all that malarkey, which I'm sure you guys have gone through. But you do need to do that for stuff that comes back into Pardot. Yeah. So that coming back into Pardot is back in marketing extension land. We've seen how we do a action type going out. So here I've got a bunch of action types. So these are all the different services that I can use. So check email and so on. I chose to use email rep, and I'm not using the others, which is why I have unticked them. I've said they are not active in automation, right? So therefore, my marketer can't use that in their when they're back in thing. And here, I've got an action type called email approved rep.io, yeah. And when your admin, that's me, I'm your admin. When your admin creates one of these, they will their guidance is give this to your developer. They'll know what to do with that. It's fine, right? That's literally what it says. Yeah. This is from a managed package, so in this case it was fine. They knew what to do with it as long as they got the name right. But the point is that you create something for it to come back out of whatever you're doing back into Pardot, and this is the basis for your code that you're going to use to interact with the Pardot API. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you a bit more about that in the next demo. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to skip the engagement program because it's a bit boring. It's exactly like we saw last time. So, my dynamic naughty list. Yeah. That's my dynamic naughty list. Yeah. It's got all these people in that I've added, and the way that this has worked is it is looking for something called an external activity. Yeah. And it's looking for these words. It's looking for the external activity of email validator, email rep check. That's the name of my activity. And it's looking for the word fail. And my code comes back and says, will either say it's passed or it's failed. So if it's failed, yeah, here it's gonna my marketer has said, I'm going to put you on a naughty list. I don't want to send you emails, right? Because I know that you've got a naughty email. Yeah. And this is pretty powerful stuff, right? Because you can say that you've got some code that's coming back into Pardot, and your Pardot person can say, I'm going to segment you accordingly. I'm going to say what list am I going to put you on? Yeah. So we've seen how that appears on the prospects, and that is another use case. You know, we're gonna look at how you write the code in a second, but this is sort of a useful way of doing code. Any questions about this so far? Second use case.
Yeah, one for the first use case. Save it for later.
Oh, you asked me about the first use case?
Use case is quite a common example where it's one of standard objects, right? So
yeah.
You mentioned before you can use custom object. So let's just say you wanted Pardot to tell the contact point type consent for like consent management inside of Salesforce. Could you potentially get like an opt-out thing or opt-in thing where Pardot could tell like a single source of truth in Salesforce to opt the person out? Pardot normally can't communicate like that over a bit powerless, right?
Yeah.
So using that first demo example, could you use the invocable action to trigger a custom object if you then to like opt in? Yep,
absolutely. So you can have an engagement program that calls a flow, and all you need to do is pass in whatever details. So you know, I passed in like 6 or 7 fields, and then you just get the flow to spray that out however you want. So I put in one object, but it could be multiple objects if you need to. Yeah. So for example, where last place I worked, existing customers could fill out a form, and it would create an opportunity for you. And it would then say, okay, I'm going to get the account and the contact ID from which it gathers from the email, and I'm going to get the products from because it was a limited list of products. I'm going to add the products, and it's going to add in the opportunity product, and then it was like it ended up being like from a single Pardot form creating like 5 objects. Yeah, it's all fine. Yeah, just didn't want to do this in this demo because tons of examples of stuff that you can do. Yeah, if it's an object in Salesforce, you can do it. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So. Demo 3, right? And this demo is like checking for an existing account. Yeah. Because if someone is if someone fills out a form and they say, I am Nathaniel Sombu at rightgeezer.com, yeah, it doesn't know by itself that that's an account that we already have. Yeah, it knows whether I exist as a prospect, or as a leader on an account, but it can't say, oh, but just by the way, that's a company that we already do business with. Yeah. So here we have semi-invocable Apex. Now, this is where I have to admit I am not a programmer, but I know someone who is. So he made some code for me, and he was at great pains to say, this is demo ready. Yes, it's demo ready. It's not production ready. Okay, so the first thing to point out is that it needs to be invocable, right? With flows, we didn't need to say it was invocable. You just had the input variables here. It's invocable, and then you do all the things. Yeah. Second thing to point out is that you need to from about here to make the call out, and then set the strings that you're going to call out. So all this stuff between line 20 and 37 is the call out that we're going to use to go out to Pardot, right? It doesn't say in the documentation that it's kind of buried that you need the Pardot business unit ID, right? But you do need the Pardot business unit ID to do it, and you are giving it the name of the extension, the type that we have in the extension, and these are all the values that we're going to use, and then we've got our Pardot API version, yeah, and then the rest of it is where we are, where we're doing stuff, and because we were testing this out, we're creating a task to say what's been done. Interestingly, having done this, having created a task, Pardot comes back and gives you a code. Says gives you a status code, and it came back with 200. Yeah, and I was like, I don't know what a 200 is. Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah. I didn't say I wasn't a developer, right? So I was like, oh my God, this error code is there. And I looked through the list of error codes from Pardot, and it wasn't there. Because it's not an error, right? So yeah, if you're going to do something like this, maybe have like a little translation table to say like 200 is a success, and don't worry your poor admin. Yeah. So yeah. All that's great fun until someone loses an eye. So we have our extension that can go out, and we have our activity, which looks suspiciously like the last one, right? We just give it a post and just the names. Yeah, that's great. But if I go on to my next slide, yeah, this is the snippet that the admin's told, just pass this to your developer, they'll know what to do with it. And then this is the actual code that needs to get written, yeah? And within that, buried, yeah, you need to say, okay, what is my connected app? Yeah, so my call out here is, I've created a connected app called an email validator, and then you stick that on the front of your API, and then you are good to go, and then you can do the rest of it. So what I'm going to do is, so far we've been talking about saying that Pardot sends out a the Pardot says, here's some data, thank you, here's some data, and then come back, right? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put in an email address, and that's not my email address. I did ask you shift to thank you. Right, okay, and then that's going to go back, and it's going to say something. Okay, so I'm going to update that. And then, it would actually help, sorry, if I showed you someone that I'd previously done. So, here we go. I don't know how to use your machine. Sorry, let's do this. Okay, so go back to home. So I'm going to put in this guy. That is going to go off and do what it needs to do. And then with that is just as you can see, that's just a screen flow that calls my Apex, right? I could have done it for someone else. I could have done a record trigger, but because that's calling my Apex, right? All this stuff, that now is going into my Pardots, and my Pardots is updated. So if I look at Andy Young in Salesforce, yeah, I've got my demo extension, tick the box. Yeah, and that will be updated in the next 3 minutes because, I've got that whole clock cycle. But, it worked previously. Now, this is an example of something useful but can be improved upon, right? So if because here I'm returning the account name, and my automation I could in Pardot say, are they VIP accounts, and have a list in my automation that says VIP account and put them in the correct list. You are better off though just returning the VIP status from the account rather than the account name. Yeah. So there's a bit of a warning because you can only go one thing equals another. If it equals this value, put it in a list. Or if it equals that value, then do something else. You can't do any lookups or anything like that. So have a little bit of caution when your marketer is asking you to do something. Yeah. Okay, so that is quite enough from me. Do we have any questions?
Can you do the naughty lists other than Pardot, or is it only specifically for Pardot? The naughty list.
Okay, I see what you mean. So can you
use it
go out to that? Not with that example, but I mean, those services are available, and if you get a friendly developer, they'll be able to go out to that, because it's just a call out to that, and it will come back and say whether it's passed or failed. So you will be able to, actually, your developer sat next to you, I'm not sure how friendly he is though. He will be able to do that for you. So it is doable.
So is there any limits on calling the invocable methods from the engagement studio?
I didn't find a limit, but that isn't to say that there isn't one. It's that I may have mentioned a couple of times documentation is poor. So the reason why this presentation is a little bit shonky is I was like, 5-second limit, is it? Yeah, that kind of stuff. So I was, and then I need to have this stuff in my code. So this is Safe Harbor. This is new. I've been demonstrating this with Engagement Studio. You will, in the next release, be able to say, do it as a completion action. So when someone fills out a form, when someone clicks on a link, all those other automations that I showed you, also be able to do these things, which is actually a lot more helpful from the next release on.
And one more question: does the marketing extension come with the additional cost along with the Pardot, or does it?
No, if you have Salesforce and you have a Pardot, it is now available. You just it just takes a bit of finding. But as I say, go to account engagement, and all your options are there. Any other questions before I wrap up? I will be in the pub if you think of other questions later. Cool. Okay.